Good afternoon, everyone. We're going to wait just a couple of more minutes. Our meeting is due to start today at 2 o'clock. I do want to make note for the record that our protest hearings are typically public hearings or public meetings. Anyone is able to attend those meetings, and in so much as we are all kind of navigating this virtual world right now, we have posted this meeting notice on nashville.gov in an effort to ensure that anyone from the public who might be interested in attending has the information they need to be able to do so. So just want to let everybody know that. And we'll go ahead and get started in about 2 minutes, okay? All right, everyone, it is 2 o'clock. And I do want to just make sure, and Stephanie, tell me if we should do any kind of a sound check or anything, just to make sure everybody's good. Everybody has got good connectivity. Say that fast 5 times. You may be able to tell that already.
So far right now, I'm seeing everyone does have what looks to be a pretty good connection. I just want to remind everyone that if you are not speaking, just to help with feedback, if you could please mute, just so we can prevent any kind of echo or anything like that. We can make sure everything's heard clearly. But so far, unless you would like to, anyone in particular would like to do a sound check, I think we are good to go.
Okay, thanks so much for that. We will go ahead and get started. And in doing so, I want to note that for the record, this is the administrative hearing for the protest of the Notice of Intent to Award a Contract pursuant to RFQ 54078, Mill Ridge and Ravenwood Park Construction to American Constructors. And this protest has been filed by Dowdle Construction Group. Before we get started, I'm getting a little bit of feedback from someone. Okay, before we get started, let's just kind of move around the space and go through the introductions. My name is Michelle Hernandez-Lane. I serve as the Chief Procurement Officer and Purchasing Agent for the Metropolitan Government.
I'm Christopher Wood. I serve as the Director of the Office of Minority and Women Business Assistance.
I'm Christina Alexander. I am the buyer for this project.
I am Macy Amos, an attorney with Metro Legal.
I'm Mark Bradfield. I'll be the project manager for Metro Parks.
All right, if we could have folks from Dowdle Construction Group, if you would introduce yourselves, please.
Glenn Dowdle, Dowdle Construction. Chase Manning, Dowdle Construction. Alan Buchanan, Dowdle Construction.
I'm sorry, tell me that last name. I know Chase and Glenn.
Buchanan, Dowdle Construction.
I'm sorry, one more time, it broke up on me.
Alan Buchanan.
Alan Buchanan, I got it. Thanks, Alan. Okay, and I think we've got some folks here from American Constructors. If you would introduce yourselves, please.
Yep, Derek Martin, American Constructors.
All right, Derek, is it just you today from American?
It is.
Okay. All right, we have someone else here with us, Steve Gillette. If you don't mind introducing yourself and identifying your the entity that you represent, would appreciate it. You're on mute, Steve. Everybody needs a t-shirt after this pandemic that says you're on mute.
I've unmuted myself. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right, thank you. Yes, this is Steve Gillette. I'm here with Mark Bradfield and or Tim. I'm not sure if Tim's with us yet.
I think I see Tim as an attendee. He's not listed as a panelist, but I'm going to get to those folks as well.
Okay, well, I'm here with Parks, as they are.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right, I think we've got all of the folks who have called in and are listed in as panelists. I want to say a special thank you to our ITS department. We did understand, later than I would have hoped to, that we really probably should be treating this as a public meeting, as I noticed all of you at the very beginning, and they were very instrumental in turning around this this panelist setup with our WebEx events very quickly. So I want to say thank you to Ms. Stephanie Judd for that. And we do have some folks who are listed in the attendee list as observers. We've got Ms. Jerval Watson, who is the Business Development and Outreach Coordinator for the Metropolitan Government. She directs those activities. We've got Mr. Michael Pavin, as well as Tim Nesh, both representing the Parks Department. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the procedure for this. I know things are a little bit different, again, operating in this, kind of virtual environment. But I do want to note that every attempt will be made to resolve the issue that's before us today and to provide a remedy that is consistent with all applicable laws, with the procurement regulations, and the terms and conditions of the solicitation itself. And also in terms of what is in the best interest of the Metropolitan Government of Nashville and Davidson County. This meeting format is informal, yet it does have some degree of structure to it, in that the protesting firm is going to be allowed the opportunity really to articulate the basis of their protest. And the time allotted for that articulation should be appropriate given the points of protest, but should not be prolonged without any real added value to the protest discussion. After that, the protesting entity has been provided that opportunity. Other affected parties will similarly be granted an opportunity, should they desire, to input, but this is not a requirement. I just want to note that. Before I continue, I also want to reiterate what Stephanie noted. For all of the attendees who are panelists, if you are not speaking, if you don't mind ensuring that you are on mute, that really helps us to ensure that we don't get any feedback and that we can hear each other clearly. Stephanie, are you able to make sure everybody, okay, we got it. All right. I am required as the purchasing agent to render a decision, and therefore I do reserve the right to seek additional information, to ask questions to any and all of the parties. However, in the interest of a swift and efficient protest discussion, I do request that all of the responses be directed to me rather than among the parties. So as we all kind of go into our discussion, as Dowdle is, afforded the opportunity to really articulate the basis of the protest that they've submitted, and if American Constructors so desires to speak to any of the points when it is their opportunity, I would really ask that all of you ensure that you're speaking or responding to me no interruption, no taking yourself off mute to speak to that point. Let's be respectful of each other in the interest of really getting to, again, a swift and efficient protest discussion. Wait until you're called on to articulate the points of your protest. The protest decision of the purchasing agent is binding, and it'll be issued in writing, which means it's going to be issued via PDF document that I will email to all of the parties. I will do that as expediently as possible. I know that we've had quite a bit of time on this solicitation already, so I will be issuing that determination quickly. However, if parties are not assured that the protest determination of the purchasing agent was consistent with applicable laws, the procurement regulations, or the terms and conditions of the solicitation itself, the determination of the purchasing agent may be appealed in writing to the Procurement Appeals Board. Such appeal must be made within 7 days of the written decision of the purchasing agent. The determination that I issue, the written determination, will also provide more clarity and specific details regarding how any protest appeal may be presented. All right, so this was just a very brief and non-binding summary of the process. I do recommend that all of you refer to the procurement code and the regulations for more specific and official information regarding these administrative rights. Okay, so the points of protest that were presented by the Dowdle Construction Group include the following. American Constructors demonstrated good faith. American Constructors possessive demonstrated good faith efforts that were submitted with their response to the Equal Business Opportunity Program were insufficient. Therefore, American Constructors is non-compliant with the Equal Business Opportunity Program requirements. That is the first point of protest. The next point of protest is that American Constructors was awarded points under team qualifications that were incorrect given the evaluation criteria established in the request for proposals. And the third point of protest is that American Constructors was awarded points for costs that were incorrect. I do want to note for the record that I did respond in writing to some of these points of protest previously, and at least one of those points, and I provided that to all of the parties, and indicated what some next steps would be related to this protest activity. And in that, and this is largely also for those folks, for those public members who are listening as well, that communication to all of the parties did include at least one error on my part, and that error was just a reference to experience on similar projects. Thank you to Mr. Dowdle for catching that, even though I did intend to say team qualifications. I was getting, I guess, fast finger syndrome looking at a lot of documents, but I included experience on similar projects. I did request that the error in the cost evaluation be reconsidered using the correct formula. That was done, and I presented that under same cover with the letter that was sent out in response to the original protest letter. And as noted in that letter, I have remanded back to the Business Assistance Office a review of the Equal Business Opportunity Program compliance efforts, as well as remanded back to the Evaluation Committee a review of the team qualifications portion. Okay, so now what I'd like to do is just take a few moments, given the points that I've articulated. I'd like to turn things over to Dowdle Construction Group to discuss more particularly the previously enumerated points.
Thank you. It's okay. Michelle.
That's my name, no problem at all.
Good. Well, thank you for and to get this more complicated. Really is. I think it's fairly straightforward, and I don't think that there's a great deal that can be added to the letter and the documentation that we supplied with our letter of protest to back up in reference to our 3 points of contention. And as you said, one of the points basically dealt with a math calculation, and that's been corrected. So we really are 0.1 and 2 on our letter dated March the 10th. And I think first, if I let me talk about, I'll try to be brief on this, the under 10 qualifications. And both these issues, point one, the good faith effort, point two, under the 14 qualifications. These our protests is based on Metro's documentation that was provided, request for quote. Not points that we've come up with outside the scope. Documents that Metro is provided, and I just want to emphasize that because it's important to understand that Metro and these RFPs, RFQs carefully, and we're not to submit a perfect proposal. I think where every single question may be answered, but we try very hard, and that is the essence of our protest under team qualification. If you look on our solicitation Metro provided, and it's on page 20 of 23, it goes through qualifications, and it's very specific about what you're asking for. And I think there's no need for me to read all of this, but I will just read a few things. It says include factors that are going to be utilizing on this project, explain project relevant qualifications with similar projects, demonstrate their ability, capacity, skill, number of years experience in providing required services, include one base for all managers, supervisors, and other key individuals, including contractors that will comprise and manage. And so council was very deliberate doing that, and we provided a total of 22 resumes, and 14 of those were ones that were submitted for subcontractors that we were utilizing in projects. So we not only identified the subcontractors that we provided lists of their past, significant projects and what they had performed. Included resumes of their key people. Basically, everything that Metro requested in the RFQ. So again, I don't want to belabor this. It's pretty clear, and I don't want to go complicated. But if you go down through everything, I made a chart, and I'll list everything that you asked for in that team qualifications, and those items were not American constructors in their proposal package. So I felt like Darrell felt like the number of points that American was awarded under the evaluation committee were in excess of awarded based on the lack of information and basically lack of response to your specific questions in the RFQ. Again, we didn't set up this RFQ. We didn't establish the point basis. We just were trying to comply and supply the information that's requested. I feel like if we put out the effort that the evaluation committee would be diligent in their review of these things and these details as we are in putting the proposal together. So in essence, that was our second point of protest. Our first point of protest dealt with the equal business opportunity requirements of this RFQ. And again, I'm not referring to any documents other than ones that are officially part of Metro quotation. But reviewing all of the submission that was made by American, it is obvious to me, I feel very strongly about this, that did not make what Metro considers a good faith effort. And I base that on a discussion on what's in your own review, but I also base it on 10 or 15 years of doing Metro, attending forums, attending get to know you workshops, have an opportunity to women on small businesses, and previous where I think we never, there is almost always one from the BAO. I may get these all BAO equal opportunity. Y'all know what we're talking about. There's usually someone there. It has always been emphasized verbally and made clear that just an invitation to bid for the web-based invitation to bid program to our 100 minority or women-owned contractors does not qualify as a good faith effort. And specifically in the 12, it states, read this sentence, in normal industry practices, contracting to economically feasible segments that can be performed by business enterprises. Told it is expected, that's expectation of Metro and the Business Affairs Office. And then if you look on page 13, which is the next one of this solicitation, it says that you've actively, and you have to answer affirmatively or negatively if you have these facts. And the first one that American answered, I believe, affirmatively. And then on page 13, the question, the statement in the RF, I've actively solicited sending letters or initiating personal contact, minority, women businesses, in all feasible and appropriate categories, providing subcontracting opportunities for the contract under consideration. And again, I believe that American responded that they had done that. And then if you look also on page 10, it talks about the equal business requirements and how the goals were set, Metro for these. And I guess the strongest sentiment that I have, whether someone has made a good effort or not, is one way you can maybe determine that is, have they done everything you said that they needed to do? And secondly, what were others able to do? So this you read it, what it was, and we set out to comply and to try. One in our office thought ever be able to meet the goals that were established when we first cracked open the specifications. But through hard work and effort, we kind of numerous and in our proposal. So for all of that, we contacted and talked and worked members, minority and women-owned. And we said, how can we work with you so that you can put a proposal together on this project? We broke up some of the work. We broke up some of the lots of hauling required in this project. We broke up the concrete work. We had several that combined all of those efforts. We were able to achieve the suggest goals, not a requirement. We understand that, but we thought it was important to actually meet the goal. So now we numerous meetings. We spent hours and hours subcontractors and together a group that they did minority and women participation. So we felt like we were just doing what's required and requested in RFQ. We didn't think we did anything beyond that. That was the minimum to make good faith effort. So, for someone to submit a list of addresses where you send out, send out a few hundred invites, that's very easy to do. It don't require much work or much effort. It's a push of a button. I don't think that's what Metro's EPO program is all. It's not what we've been told it's all about. That's not what's been discussed at lunch and learns. And I feel like American, make a good faith effort. And I will say one thing too, if you look after the score was corrected, even though we were higher in cost factor, we actually had scored more under cost than the low bid that American provided. So, having said all of that, again, I think that our letter and our backup that we provided with the protest letter is fairly thorough. I think that what our goal would be out of this, we have whenever Metro is going through the process in the past and in this process, we send out a letter of intent to award. It states very clearly in the letter that it is subject to negotiations with the offerer. And so, what we would like to see happen, we strongly believe we have our proposal is the better proposal. Our proposal should have the higher score. And what we would like to is a letter of intent subject to successful contract negotiations with the owner. And a lot of the cost on this project is conditioned on when this work occurs. The year you start has a lot to do with it, and obviously when the owner hoped it would start, that didn't happen, and so we're looking at a different time of the year for starting the project. It is awarded to someone, so that would be our in. We think that is the appropriate way to move forward. And if the owner are not able to negotiate a contract that works for everyone, then I think the Metro would have to take the next step. So that's I think that's pretty much our position and our thoughts on this. We are capabilities. Obviously, American is a company, very well respected. We are equally a company very well known and have also completed a lot of work with the owner.
Thank you so much for that thorough articulation of the points. What I'd like to do at this point, and I want to note again that this is not a requirement, but I would like to provide an opportunity to turn the floor over to American Constructors. If you would like to respond to or to discuss any of the elements of the protest, you have the opportunity to do so now.
Okay, thank you, Michelle, and thank you, everyone. Point number one about EBO outreach. We've had a follow-up meeting with Christopher, and we provided additional information, which we're allowed to do. And Christopher, I don't know or Michelle, at what point Christopher can summarize his final findings after our phone call and the additional information we submitted. Is that now?
Yeah. Well, I reserve the right to call on any of the parties to speak to any of the protests and points that have been raised. But the purpose of this point in this process is really to allow you to speak to the specific points that have been lodged, specifically the points of protest that have been presented that speak to why American Constructors should not have been awarded.
Okay. Well, hopefully at some point that will happen. We'll get the results of Christopher's determination. But so from our perspective, we do use a online program to solicit bids. The first thing we actually did was take Metro's database of diverse vendors, import that, and to make sure that they receive bid invitations along with other subcontractors. So I just want that to be known, that even though we're using a web program, it doesn't mean that we're not reaching out to people. The next thing we did, we actually did have phone conversations with MWBE subcontractors, and we directly communicated with them. Glenn, you didn't see that documentation, but that was provided to Christopher during the protest period. We broke up the project scope into small enough chunks to encourage participation. Obviously, with COVID, we did not do in-person meetings, but again, we did directly contact vendors for participation. The bottom line, though, is the project had a goal and not a requirement, and we endeavored to meet the goals, but at some point you'll see that there is a cost. It is a balance between cost and reaching the goal, and Metro Parks endeavors to equalize that, or purchasing does, with the scoring system. We understand that. A lot of bids that we get 2 minutes before the deadline. We did not select subcontractors in advance of turning in our bid. We don't know who we're going to select until we're receiving bids. And again, we get bids up to minutes before the due date. So we are rapidly looking at these bids, determining if the subcontractors have a full scope or not. And then looking, are they SWE, are they MW, what is their classification if they have one? So we're quickly making those determinations. And Glenn can appreciate that. He's been through many hard bid scenarios. And so at the end of the day, you're picking what you think is the best fit, and then submitting your bid. And all this happens again very, very quickly. So it's my main point about the diversity outreach. We did endeavor to do that. We did contact people directly, and we did cast a wide of a reach as we possibly could. As far as the team qualifications, I read the same paragraph from the RFQ. It does say, provide detailed information, including your major subcontractors, and describe their project role. That is the blurb about your subcontractors. We had the subcontractor form, which had everyone's information, their contact information, and their role that they would be on the project. The next sentence, though, says, identify key professionals for the team. We took that to mean our key professionals. So when we read that, we're switching back to the general contractors team and their qualifications. So we did provide resumes for our key players, all of whom have worked on Metro Park projects, by the way, including years of experience and all those things. And then it goes on to other team qualifications. So I haven't seen Glenn's chart. We do the same thing he does when we get an RFQ. We take out each basically phrase and try to make sure we answer each phrase. I do feel like we did that, and I do feel like we have a strong team. Our superintendent just did a Metro Parks Community Center, and well, actually both of them did. So, and I've worked with parks on multiple projects. So I feel like we answered the team qualifications. That's just my opinion on that. At some point, I'm sure it is subjective. So I will say that it's difficult to submit resumes for subcontractors if you have not picked them in advance. And again, you get late bids, and you don't want to throw out a bid simply because you got it 3 minutes prior to the bid turn in. So if that is a good subcontractor, it's a good number, and you want to use it, you don't have time to get a resume from them and put it into an RFQ if in 2 minutes you're submitting your bid. So I'm on hard bids that is just fast and furious. We've never done that, again, because it's so last minute. I think that's all I have to say. Again, we submitted additional information. I hope it answered the questions we were asked. We respect the Dowdle's right to protest. We stand by our proposal. We think we would do a great job. And again, at some point, this does come down to the cost. We were $2.6 million low. I hope we have to live with that number, and I'm confident we have everything covered, but that's a lot of money. It honestly made me nervous, but when we re-examined everything, we felt good about it. That's about 17% low. So, but thank you for the opportunity to give our side and be part of this.
Okay, thank you so much. What I'd like to do at this point is go into a discussion about the specific points of protest. We've heard from the protesting party, particularly about the items that were included in the initial letter of protest. And to the point regarding the cost evaluation, I am going to, in so much as we have under separate cover corrected the originally protested item related to cost, I am going to just really kind of move that to the end, and we'll have some follow-up discussion about that toward the end of our meeting. But I would like to go ahead now and have a discussion related to protest point number 1. And as we'll note, related to this specific protest point, I have remanded the complete EBO compliance review back to the Business Assistance Office. Mr. Martin kind of alluded to that in his comments. I did remand it back to them for additional compliance review. And Mr. Christopher Wood is here with us on the call. And if you would, Christopher, I'd like for you to kind of discuss some of the elements related to the result of that review.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Ms. Lane. Thanks for both parties for the input you've provided so far today. So when it comes to the Equal Business Opportunity Program, the Business Assistance Office follows the evaluation of bid program compliance, which is outlined in the ordinance in section 4.46080. What that states is that the BAO will review the first ranked bidder's response for program compliance. What that means is when the first bidder, which was American Constructors for this solicitation, was sent to us, that is who we review. And so during that review, it was determined that they did not meet the established subcontractor participation goals. At that point, we look at their good faith efforts to document if they actually made a genuine effort. And during our initial review, we did look at that documentation, and there's an area in there where we can conference with them if we have any clarification that is needed based on what is submitted. And so we did use that process and conference with them. The first thing that we did when we conferenced with them was went through the good faith effort sheets, which provide questions and then responses. And so in that, I will go through briefly those documents. And so the first question that we do ask in there was a written solicitation done in trying to get subcontractors. And if you look at the initial solicitation, which you would see that it appears to just be an email blast. However, after conferencing with them, they were able to provide to us documentation that was timestamped prior to the solicitation closing, or it was broken out, targeted outreach. Although it was email, it was targeted in specific areas such as sent to MWBs that did concrete work, did electrical work, signage, and etc. So there was targeted outreach done through the email. In addition, there was some additional follow-up communication that was sent to the BAO, which stated there were follow-up emails to some of the vendors that they had initially solicited through email to confirm if they wanted to be a part of the project with them. So that was one area we looked at. In addition, we look at bid rejection. We did see that there was an offer on there that was received, which was a minority woman-owned business, and we had to look to make sure it was justifiable that that bid was rejected. There was additional documentation provided to BAO, which showed the pricing provided from the subcontractor that they spoke with and the cost of self-performing that. We do encourage subdividing the work and getting subcontractor participation on stuff that you would usually self-perform, but we also do take into consideration the cost in that, and the justifiable reason for rejecting that bid was it was a substantial difference than what it would have cost American to do that work. Also, when we look at our good faith efforts, we look at, is there any type of training or non-discrimination that is provided by the organization? And so we're just looking to see if that's a business process practice they do have. And they did provide with us, dates of training completed, dates of training that were scheduled. And then there was also some documentation of training that had to be postponed due to COVID because it was in person at that time. We also looked to see if there was meetings or invitations done. So look at meetings, we were able to speak with them and they were about documentation of, attending pre-offer meetings and also having telephone calls, which are meetings done that weren't in person. And so we did take that into consideration as well. And then community and other organizational support services. That is another factor that we look at when looking at these good faith efforts. And during conferencing with them, the prime did notate, and again, they utilize, our Metro approved list. Building Connected, I believe, is the software that they use and associated builders to connect with different vendors. So after, our final review of their documentation and meeting with them, it was determined that they did meet good faith efforts. One thing that we have noticed and taken into consideration, and Mr. Dowdall, I appreciate you bringing that up, is that, and I'd like for you to know that when we look at the review of these good faith efforts, we look at the first ranked bidder. So at the time of the initial review, we did not look at other offers to see what they submitted. But one thing that we've discussed, moving forward, because after looking at your bid, I did look at that once I got into the protest and was, following up on documents of this. We did see, utilization on your offer. So internally, it's something that we have, discussed moving forward with solicitations to make sure to incorporate that as part of our good faith efforts. And that is to, compare utilization achievement with other offers. So I do thank you for bringing that up. And it is something that moving forward, we will be considering.
All right, Christopher, thank you for that. So, before I move on to the next item, I do just want to make sure that I understand what you're saying, which is the point that I think Glenn he articulated well in the letter and here today was related to a comparison of the achievement across the offers. And if I understand you correctly, Christopher, and while I have had the privilege of leading the BAO in my previous life, I have not had the privilege of leading it, under the new, under the implementation of the Equal Business Opportunity Program. So I fully yield to Christopher on this. But what you're saying, I believe, is that as part of that good faith effort summary review going forward, which is applicable when the goals have not been met, there's, you all are discussing how consideration of how other offers have fared in achieving the goal as part of that good faith effort summary review.
That would be correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Okay. I'd like to next just go to, and what I'd like to do is really discuss all of these items, and then we can, get to more particular elements related to it and the implication upon a determination. But I have reviewed the entire evaluation summary related to team qualifications. And as a reminder, the evaluation criteria, which I think Dowdle Construction Group has laid out pretty well as well, included or required, the evaluation criteria of this section required detailed information regarding background, experience, and qualifications to accomplish the outcomes of the scope of this solicitation. The solicitation required that we, receive this information from the prime contractor, but also detailed information identifying major subcontractors, as has been articulated. The solicitation further requested that offers identify the proposed key professionals for this project team that would be utilized on the project, including any subcontractors, along with an explanation of their project role, as well as some other items that were listed there. The solicitation criterion, this specific one, also requested the inclusion of one-page resumes for all managers, supervisors, and other key individuals, including subcontractors that would comprise the management team, if there were any subcontractors to comprise the management team. For each of the proposed team members, they ask for certain things like, or we, claims and suits, any judgments, other things such as that, a list of the major construction projects that are currently underway, et cetera, along with any safety-related incidents or violations in the past 2 years. As noted in my previous communication, I have remanded that section back to the evaluation committee for reconvening and re-review. I just made up a new word. My high school English lit teacher would probably be losing his mind, but for a review, again, for an additional review. And I'd like at this time really to turn it over to Ms. Alexander, and if you would talk a little bit about, advise us of the outcome of that reevaluation by the evaluation committee.
Okay, thank you for that. And as Christopher and Michelle both have said, thank you guys for coming to the meeting today. We did, per your request, reconvened the evaluation committee, and the evaluation committee did go back over the documents and stood behind the scoring that they provided.
Okay, so based upon the information that was provided in the protest letter from Dowdle, the evaluation committee opted not to make any changes.
That is correct.
Okay, and we do have at least one person from that evaluation committee. I'm not certain were Mark and Steve both a part of the evaluation committee?
No, Steve was not.
Okay. Mark, I'd like to give you the opportunity, if you'd like to speak to any, important points that were considered in this reevaluation that really drove you all to determine that the points as were granted initially were appropriate.
Okay, thanks, Michelle. I really don't have a whole lot to say about that, other than, I have to agree with Glenn that looking at the submissions, looking at the submitted proposals, it's clear that Dowdle did do their homework. Dowdle did put together a more thorough proposal. The difference that I had was that we had just worked with American on a similar set of projects, keyword being set. They were able to manage both at the same time, two projects going at the same time, and this is a similar setup. So I gave them a little bit more points than Dowdle and on that subject. And then when it came to the list of subcontractors, they were obviously missing from American's submittal. So we equally deducted what we thought was an adequate amount of points for that purpose. Basically, what that does in my mind equalizes the playing field, sort of. So I felt like we had two perfectly capable and qualified contractors. And it ultimately, as far as the Parks Department is concerned, it comes down to a cost evaluation. And that's pretty much where we landed the first time. So we decided, after reconvening, that's where we should stay. And that's pretty much all I have to offer on that subject.
All right, thank you so much. So related to the point of protest, and let's just kind of get down into it. Related to the point of protest regarding the team qualifications, again, I've reviewed the information in total. I've reviewed the full points of protest. I've reviewed both proposals. And it is clear to me that the response submitted by American Constructors did not provide the level of detail regarding the subcontractors proposed for this project as requested by the solicitation. I enumerated what those items were. Mark, let me get you to put yourself on mute if you don't mind. Thanks so much. I appreciate it. We're all still getting used to this. But again, it is also not clear to me that the points that were assigned to American are appropriate given the response. I do want to say for the record that we make every effort to ensure that evaluators do not introduce any extraneous information in the evaluation, as it is not appropriate to be considering anything other than what was requested and the responses submitted thereto. So I do want to make that point. So that's my initial thinking on the technical qualifications. Again, the Equal Business Opportunity Program details have been, articulated as well by Mr. Wood. And I'm hearing, the elements of that as well. And I do want to note that, again, the piece related to cost, there was indeed an error in the cost evaluation. And we have talked very specifically about that internally, and we made that correction and sent it to all the parties. The specific correction that was provided to all of the parties on the cost evaluation was related to Dowdle Construction Group's specific point of protest, and again, provided to everyone. However, upon review of the total procurement file in preparation for this meeting, when I looked through everything, and that's, you all just have to forgive me, it's probably a good thing, but I tend to be extremely type A about things. I remember a previous mayor telling me I wasn't a little type A, that I was a lot of type A. But I do tend to be, a little type A. So I'm reading through every element as it should be. And when I was preparing for the meeting, I discovered that the evaluation of the small business implication on the cost points that were awarded may have been in error. And specifically, what I want to draw everyone's attention to is that it's not clear to me when I look at the details of the evaluation, it's not clear to me that the maximum allowable contract price has been taken into consideration as is required by the regulations. If you look at the procurement regulations specifically in the small business section, it specifies that for construction-related solicitations, the purchasing agent shall use, the scale that is specified in the regs to establish the maximum acceptable contract price based upon the lowest responsive and responsible offer. Further, the regulations specify that that this establishes the maximum acceptable contract price that will be awarded. And so a particular note related to this is that the firm that does not exceed the maximum allowable contract price and has the lowest evaluated bid price after consideration of the small or service disabled veteran-owned business participation will win the award when we're dealing with invitations to bid, or will receive the maximum score for the cost criteria if we're dealing with a request for proposal. It's not clear to me that the cost evaluation that was conducted, considering the small business implication, is in full compliance with the procurement regulations. So that is another item and I saw Mark specifically. What that means is, even in an RFP, what we should be doing is considering the maximum allowable contract price. And those firms, or the firm that submits the lowest responsive and responsible bid, will set the MACP. And therefore, what ends up happening is that when you're dealing with an RFP, the firm, after consideration of small business, that has the lowest evaluated bid price and does not exceed the MACP should get the most points in an RFP. And when I'm reviewing all of the documents related here too, it's not clear to me that that's what has happened. So what I would like to do, and I'm not going to belabor this point for long at all, it's my intention to take all of the information that I've heard here today, as well as this information that I've provided to you all, to take all of that under consideration and to render a written decision to all of the parties by Monday, October 30th. And so I will present that to everyone as a PDF document via email. Are there any questions or any comments?
Just to be clear, I think you mean Monday, November 30th.
What did I say? Am I trying to make it be 2021 already? What did I say?
You said October.
You said October.
Oh, yes, November 30th, Monday, November 30th. Thank you. Thank you to, the lawyers are always going to get you straight. But yes, it'll be Monday, November 30th, if not before that date. Are there any questions? Okay, thank you all so much. I know that we've been dealing with this solicitation for some time, so it is my intention to issue this determination very expeditiously. I thank all of you for participating and for providing, the clearly articulated details that you have that will be beneficial to me as I prepare determination for all parties. Thank you so much.